Welcome to this part 2 demonstration of seamless data between your Office 365 and your on-premise environment. This is going to be more of a build experience. So what we've had a look at so far is a scenario where we've got internal staff working on various different systems, having the external contractors working with inside of Office 365, being able to bring in the on-premise data into that Office 365 environment, as well as information from other cloud services, to be able to help those contractors fill in forms and have accurate information that they're looking at over there, and then be able to start processes that span from your Office 365 environment to your on-premise and back again. So if you think about that scenario, if we start to just concentrate a little bit more on the data elements. So what we've got is a number of different systems. We don't really worry about whether those systems are in the cloud or not. So if you just take those systems, think about those for a minute. What we want to do is be able to use and interact with these systems. Now, instead of directly connecting our forms and our workflows to these various systems, it would become quite technical, and we'd have to think about a lot of technology every time we did it, whenever we wanted to build a new application. What K2 has is a technology that helps abstract that layer of technology from the build process, so that you can focus more on the business problem at hand. So what we have is a layer of K2 service objects. Inside of this layer, there are a number of brokers. These are just an example of the few that we're going to use in this example, but there's quite a few, and you can also build your own. But these brokers allow you to do bidirectional communication with these different systems. On top of these service objects, or these brokers, we're able to build K2 smart objects. So these are more business representation of the data that lies underneath. And those smart objects can be composite objects. So you could have employee that could be pulling data from AD and maybe an HR system that represents employee, or it could be from it could even be functionality, for example, like currency converter on the end here, which is going to be connected through a web service to a currency converting web service, so that it's almost a piece of functionality that's exposed to the smart objects, as well as being able to expose data. On top of those smart objects, then we're able to then go and build out our forms, workflows, and even reports against that. So let's go and have a look at the sort of process that it takes to expose some of these systems. So I'm not going to do them all. I'll do SQL Server and a web service, expose those as new smart objects, and then we'll go and utilize those in our forms. And then we'll see how it keeps us more business problem focused when we are building out our applications and working in Office 365 or SharePoint, and not have to worry about the technology, which is more of the IT focus then. So let's get on with it. Exit my PowerPoint. Let's go into Office 365. So what I have inside of here is I've got the same kind of list, a project expenditure list. At the moment, this is just a standard Office 365 list. Nothing special going on here. So if I were to go and click on New Item, what you'll see is that's just the standard list. So it doesn't help me too much, so I can't choose a customer and a project, and all that information needs to come from my on-premise environment. So the first thing I want to do is turn this form into a K2 smart form, as well as the project expenditure list item itself. We want to turn that into a smart object. So that's the first smart object we're going to generate is the smart object out of our Office 365 environment, as well as generate some forms and smart objects out of that. So this is quite a nice way of being able to do that automatically. I'm just going to go to my list, click on Application, under the little K2 option over there. Let's create a new application out of that. And over here I get a couple choices. So the first one is I want to create a smart object. Yes, I do, and then we can use it in other places. I also want to create a form on top of that, and I can choose to create a workflow and report. So today we're just going to focus on the data in the form. So just simply saying OK, and that's going to go and do a lot of work for me. It's going to go and automatically create a smart object out of the list item, and smart object out of the list item attachments, because you can have one-to-many relationship there. It's going to generate a view around the data and put that view onto a form. And how K2 works is that you build a view, and then you can put the view on many forms, which means that you could have a few views into different systems and expose all of those onto a single form, and you don't have to rebuild it every time, so it becomes a reusable component. Everything becomes reusable in K2. Smart objects can be used in many places, the views can be used in many places, then of course you can go and put those onto different forms, and forms can actually be used from within inside of forms as opening up sub-forms and things like that. So let's have a look at what we've got. So if I just open, let me open this in another window over here. Let's go back to our project expenditure build, and now if I say new item, what we'll see is that's no longer a Office 365 form, that is now a K2 Smart form. So this is a form with two views. It's got the create view for the item and the attachments view. So we can see that there, that's the top view, that's the attachments view, and then that is the form that's on. So I can go now and edit this form, and we can start to make some modifications to that. So for example, the first thing I want to do is let's go and check this form out, and let's go and edit it. So we're going to take advantage of two smart objects that I've already got, so for the customer and the project. So if you remember, the customers are actually coming in from our Office 365 environment. So what I'm going to do is turn this into a drop-down list box, and then I'm going to go and say, well, where does it get its data from? Its data source is going to be a smart object. So let's go and choose the smart object that I want to connect to. So now this is my category server, and all my items that I have available, all the smart objects I have available that I can access. So if I go to my line of business under CRM, I have got smart objects, and I've got some smart objects built on top of my CRM account entity. I've actually got a few against a CRM account. The account one has got everything, and it's so many fields. The lookup is a summary, is a subset, and then I've got a little summary one, which is even a smaller subset. So I'm going to use that one. I'm going to say I want to store the account name, and I'm going to show the account name in that drop-down list box. So just say OK, and that's the first step. The next thing I want to do is bring through a list of projects for that customer. So if you remember, that was sitting inside of that SharePoint list. So once again, let me turn that into a drop-down list box. Let's now go and connect that to a data source as well. So this time around, I'm going to go to my SharePoint environment. With inside there, I'm going to go to my portal over here, and there's my customer projects. So here I've also got two smart objects against customer projects. The customer project simple is also a nice subset of the data from. I don't want all the SharePoint metadata fields inside there, like the created by and the date created and all that sort of stuff. So this is also again a nice summary version of it. That's just going to show me my title, customer name, budget, and that information sitting there. So I want to show the title. What I might even do is, instead of just showing the title, let's put the title plus the status of that, so that they can make sure they select an in-process project rather than one that's completed. Now what I want to do is, I don't just want to simply show all the projects for all the customers. I want the projects, which is from SharePoint, to be filtered by the customer they've selected from the CRM system. So we're going to do a filter. The parent control is going to be the customers, and we're going to be filtering on the customer name. Alright, so I'll save that. Let's have a look what we've done so far. So if I go back into this list, let's go back to Project Expenditure Demo and New Item. And what you'll notice now is the form is loading up, and it's going to go and populate our little drop downs. Now what's quite interesting is this taking a little bit of time to load up. It's connecting to my CRM system. I can actually make that load asynchronously, and I'll show you a little bit of that later. So there's a list of my CRM customers, including the South Mine that we created I think in the previous demonstration. When I select that, that now is bringing a list of projects for that particular one. So I probably don't have any for that particular customer. Let's look at Alpine Ski House. And there's some items. If I go back to South Mine, I don't have any items inside here. So what I'm going to do is just go into my on-premise SharePoint environment. Let's go and add a project for that particular customer. So let's add a new one. So now this is my on-premise again. So let's add this as another mine shaft. So it's a project or mine shaft, it's fine. Customer is mine, South Mine, status is in process, budget is 90,000. Save. Right, so I've just added that onto my on-premise environment. So if I go back into Office 365, choose Alpine Ski House, go back and choose South Mine, and then you can see the mine shaft in process that we just added, and that's now on that form. Alright, so that's just a very quick form that we've already got created. It's connected to my CRM data, it's connected to my on-premise SharePoint data, and we've got a cascading drop-down taking place between those different environments. Now, if you remember, we want to do a few more things inside here. We also want to be able to get a drop-down list box of currencies and be able to do some currency conversion to work that out into Australian dollars. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go and generate now the ability to expose these currencies as smart objects. So I've already got one exposed, but for this demonstration we're going to do it from scratch again, just so you can see what it's like to expose that data. So I'm going to go into my on-premise environment. So what I have over here is a currency list sitting inside of a SQL Server. So we've got a number of different currencies sitting inside here, and I'd like to expose this as a smart object so I can bring that data into my Office 365 environment. So let's go about doing that. So I go to a little tool here where I can manage my service objects. Let's open that up. I go to the service that I want to be able to use. So that is going to be my SQL Server service. And I can create a new instance. So let's create a new instance of that. I can specify how do I connect to that backend database. So do I want to impersonate, or in this particular case I'm going to use a service account. The name of the database is the custom SQL DB, and that's it. So I'll hit next. We'll give this a name. So I'll call this 365, well actually let's just call this our currency DB, even though it's got other stuff in it, just for the purposes of this demo. That's the name of the service that we're going to expose it as. So what that does is that's gone and it's created a currency DB here for me, expose all the tables that are sitting inside there, and what I can see there is there's the currency table that's exposed for me. So what I'm going to do now is go and create a smart object out of that. So let's go and create a smart object. In this case, I'm going to put this into a little folder here called a demo, just so it appears at the top for this demonstration. And this is going to be our currency. So I'm going to publish that, and that is now a smart object that we've just published that I can now go and even test. So I can go to my Smart Object Explorer, there's a demo, there's a currency sitting in there with the methods, and for example I could execute the list method, give that a test, and I can see that it's all working and it's pulled those values out for me. So we can then go and take advantage of that currency. So let's do the web service one as well. So what I have here is a web service. It's got a get currency by date method inside of it that takes a bunch of values in it and returns back a value. So I'm going to take this web service URL as well. Let's go to the service objects as well. Now this time around I'm going to go and use the endpoint web service one. Let's create an instance of that, and you'll notice it's very similar. Specify how do I connect. Let's use a service account. Let's give the web service URL. You'll notice these fields change based upon the service that you're busy connecting to. So if I was connecting to Dynamics CRM, it asks me for the organization that I want to connect to in the URL. If I'm connecting to a the SQL database, it's the details of the SQL database that are exposed there. So let's go next. So this is going to be our currency converter web service. Let's give it a name like that, converter web service. So that is now creating an instance of that for me. So what this does is it goes and interrogates that web service the same way I did the database. There's our currency web service. It's found the services, and there's the get currency by date. I'm also going to create a smart object out of that one, and that's I'm going to neaten it up a little bit. Get currency by date. Let's take that out. I'm going to put it into the same location into a demo over there. And then I can go and make some modifications. So it's got a method here called read, and I'm going to rather call this convert. It brings back a double. I'm just going to call this converted value for now. And let's go and publish that. I've already got one, so let's give this another name here. Let's call this demo get currency by date. So if we go back into our little Smart Object Explorer, we can see there's the currency one we did a few minutes ago, and then the demo get currency by date. So that lists our currencies, and this is the thing responsible for converting them using that web service. All right. So those are those two new smart objects. So let's go now and take advantage of them as well. So here we go back into SharePoint. Let's go back to our little designer. So for the currency, we're going to turn this into a little, let's make it an option list for fun. So let's make that a radio button list. Let's let it get its values from a smart object. So from a demo, let's get the currency list. And we're going to show the actual currency. And you'll see it's all the fields that are from the smart object. It's a nice simple one. It's just got the currency inside there. Alright, so that's going to show a list of our currencies. What we want to do now is add a rule that when you select a currency, we want to go and put that value in the Australian dollar amount over here, which I'm going to make read only as well. So you can't go and change it. So let's add a rule. The rule is going to be when the option box has been changed, I can put some conditional. I can go and check that the amount has been sorry, not the approver. The amount has been inputted, as well as the currency on the drop-down list box has been selected. And if that is both true, then what we're going to go and do is execute another smart object. The smart object we're going to execute is the one, the get currency by date that we created a few minutes ago. It's going to call the convert method. Remember, we renamed that. And if I go and configure that, we can see the inputs. And we can go now map those with the fields that we got on our form. So for example, we're going to go from whatever they've selected in the currency radio button list. We are going to be converting this to Australian dollars. The amount, well, let's go and get the amount that they put in the text box. And for the date, well, why don't we just get today the current date and time. That is going to bring back a return value of converted value, which I'm going to go and put into the Australian dollar text box. So let's go and have a look at that. So if I just give that a quick refresh. There we go. What we can see there is a list of our currencies coming from SQL. And if I go and choose, let's put an amount in here of 90,000 and go and use US dollars. We can see that's converted that currency for us. I can go and say Great British Pounds, New Zealand dollars. You can see it's working quite nicely now. What we can also do is perhaps maybe for the approvers, I'd like them to select a list of people to be able to select as an approver. So let's go and do that as well. What I'm going to do for the approvers is I'm going to turn that into a little drop-down list box as well. I'm going to go and connect that up to my on-premise smart object connected to my Active Directory. I'm going to bring, instead of displaying a person's Active Directory name, I'd rather display their display name and perhaps their title to sit inside there. And what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to bring the company. I've got quite a few different users in my system, so that's going to take place. Now what's going to happen is it's going to bring everybody. I don't want absolutely everyone to come through here, so I want to do a little bit of filtering. So I go to my rules. If you look at the initialize, it's written some rules already inside there for me. For example, when this form initializes, it's going to populate the customers, the currencies, and the approvers. I can go to the approvers now and configure that. I can pass in input parameters or add filters. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say where the company equals K2. So I want to bring people from the K2 company, as well as bring that data back and sort it by display name. And what I can also do is instead of this happening, then that, I'm going to make all of these happen asynchronously. So this form isn't really going to even wait for the form to load. We're not going to have to sit and wait for all that data to be loaded before we can start filling out information on the form. So let's have a look at that. Just going to check this one in. So let's refresh our page again. And what we'll notice how quickly it loaded this time around. And if I look at my list of approvers, it's only got a subset of people from my Active Directory that are in the K2 company that I can now choose as approvers. Not my entire. I've got probably about 1,000 users inside of my AD in this demonstration environment. What we can also do then is perhaps maybe when I choose a particular person, so if I go and choose, Henny over here, I'd like his mobile number to appear over there so that we can take advantage or use it. What I can do from there is I can take that one step further. Let me check that out again and edit. What I'm going to do here is add a similar rule that when an approver is changed, then what I can do here is I can transfer some data. I can go now to the approver drop-down list box. I'm able to access the underlying data source of that. From there I can get all sorts of information, including the mobile. And the mobile, I'm just going to pass that over to the mobile text box. And that'll populate that bit of data there for me. Now, what I might also want to do is expose this form that we're looking at over here, perhaps even externally, to allow people from externally to be able to populate information into my my Office 365 list. So what we can do there is we can actually go and create this form and make an external version of it. So I'm going to go to the new form over here. It's the one that we've been working on. Let's just save that as. I'm going to call this external. A little bit of a typo there. Let's go and edit it and make a modification to this now. I don't want to see the attachment, so let's get rid of that. I want to change some of the characteristics of this form, so I'm going to give it a different theme. I'm also going to make it stretch out, but don't get bigger than 800 pixels wide or smaller than 300 pixels. I'm going to do that. I'm also going to go and include some additional views. So I'm going to bring my external header over here, and that's pretty much. Oh, and the last thing I'm going to do here as well is go and switch on anonymous access onto this form. So let's finish that off. Let's check it in and go and run that form. There we go. So now we have that form sitting outside of Office 365 and still able to capture that data. So let's go and fill one of these in. Test 1046. Time of my machine over there. Let's choose a customer, South Mine. Let's choose the Mineshaft project. Let's put a date inside there, an amount. Let's put that as US dollars. Choose an approver. My telephone number coming up there, and hit save. So if we go back into our Office 365 environment over here, let's go and look at project expenditure demo. And we can see there's that item that we've just added inside there. So people can come inside here, add a new item, fill in this form, 1047, choose some details inside here as well. So there's those two items. So one item I added anonymously through an external page that we provided, and the other one using an internal one. Now what's quite interesting is both this internal form and the external form are using the same view. So I don't have two forms that I really have to maintain. I've really got one view. I maintain that one view, and I've exposed it on those two forms. What you can also then do is take these forms and render them on mobile devices as well. So let me take that form that we exposed a few seconds ago, and I'm going to go and expose that onto my mobile device. So I've got a little tool that I've created to create a little tiny URL and be able to send it to my my mobile device so that we can have a look at that. Okay. So this is accessing that same form. So it's this exact form over here on my mobile device. And you can see how it's rendered now as well. So I haven't had to create a mobile form for the different devices. This is exactly the same form, just picking up on the responsive UI capability. And again, on my mobile device, I could fill this in, save it away, and it's going to save that data into that Office 365 list. So if you just recap on what we created there, we had a number of systems we wanted to interact with. We had the K2 brokers. We took the SQL Server one, and we generated a service out of that. And we took the web service, and we generated a service out of that. We then went and generated smart objects on top of that. It took us just a few seconds to do. So the Office 365 one happened automatically. We just did it from Office 365, clicked the button, and it generated all of that for us. And then we manually did the SQL Server and the web service one to expose those as those different smart objects. We were then able to take advantage of those in the K2 Forms technologies that are exposed through various different options, either on their own or through SharePoint or through Office 365. Thank you very much for watching this demonstration.